When applying for finance and going to the banks, they obviously do some pretty thorough checks, and we need to make sure we've got all those things in order to make sure they can give you some money. Hey guys, Justin Pickett back with another video for you today. Just wanted to chat to you about some of the basics of when you're applying for a loan through myself or the banks or whoever we go with, what are the key things we need in order to get started. So I was just going to go through a basic list of what we look for each time and some key things that we need. So when applying for finance and going to the banks, they obviously do some pretty thorough checks, and we need to make sure we've got all those things in order to make sure they can give you some money and that everything checks out. So when running your file and looking through all of your details, what we're looking at here first of all is obviously your ID. So you need to make sure that you are who you say you are. So driver's license, passport is usually the 100 points of ID that we need. If we don't have those, Medicare cards, birth certificates, marriage certificates, all those type of things are generally what we use to verify your ID. Second thing is going to be your pay slips. So if you're employed full time, you get your pay slips from your employer, whether that weekly, monthly, fortnightly, whatever it is. We generally need to have your two most recent pay slips. If we're using commissions and bonuses and overtimes and things like that, sometimes we might need more pay slips or your kind of PAYG summaries or your income tax statements, which you can get from the MyGov portal. So that just verifies that if you had a base salary of 80,000 and you had 20,000 in commissions, that they can see that that was earned in the previous financial year, and that gives the banks the security that they can use that going forward, and it's consistent. The other one as well is I need proof of savings. So you may hear the term genuine savings and non-genuine savings. Genuine savings is the savings that's been accumulating in a pretty steady pattern for a 3-month period or longer. Non-genuine savings might be you won $100,000 on Lotto, and where you've got something, whatever it is, you just dump money in randomly and there's no savings history. So most banks want to see that genuine savings capacity, especially if you're in that lender's mortgage insurance territory. If you're not, you may need to have that lump of cash sitting in your account for 3 months. So they're kind of the main things you look at as well. The other one's going to be is your statement. So we need to have a look at your everyday living expense statements. So making sure that your food, your groceries, and obviously see if you've got Afterpay, Zip Pays. Finding out what you're spending your money on is obviously very important. If our budgets are very, very high and we're spending money on all these different things, it can really hurt our application. So trying to tidy that up and reduce your spending when applying for finance and obviously tidying things up is definitely something to look into as well. And then also need to look at your statements as well. So credit cards, car loans, home loans, personal loans, whatever it is. You need to make sure you've got that good credit history and conduct as well. If there's any late payments, missed payments, fees, late fees, whatever, does also raise a bit of a red flag to the lenders. So we want to make sure that before we go ahead, we've got that all tidied up as well. If you own any properties, you need to make sure we've got your rates notices that confirm that. You need your rental income statements from your property managers, confirming how much rent you get per week. You may also need to have a copy of your lease as well. So that's generally most of the type of stuff you'd see for someone who's in that PAYG scenario. You may also need to get some letter from your parents saying that you live at home rent free, or a copy of your lease on where you're living. If you're in a share house, making sure that everyone's on that lease, whatever it is. So once we obviously get all this paperwork together, we can kind of determine whether it's going to CommBank or ANZ or whoever it is, or some third-tier lender like Pepper or whatever it is. So once we review that paperwork and obviously get your forms and stuff back, then obviously we can create a bit of a scenario to that too. The other part as well is that if you're self-employed, it's probably a bit of a slight digression a little bit here as well. Self-employed, a bit more involved than just your standard PAYG. So if you are self-employed, usually the general rule is you need to have your business registered for 2 years as a minimum and have 2 years completed financials. So that's 2 years business tax returns, 2 years company tax returns, and also your notice of assessment for the last 2 years. Now, most of your lenders still want that to have the registered business going for a minimum of 2 years, but some of these lenders are now actually changing where they might only need 12 months financials, and they'll look at your most recent year. So if you had a bad time through COVID and things are picking back up, there are some lenders that can just look at solely that too. So that's really been fantastic. Some lenders also streamlining it that if you pay yourself a consistent wage or a salary, you can look at obviously showing those pay slips. It is over like a 6-month or 12-month period, but if you can show that, the banks are being a bit more willing towards that. But your paperwork is crucial, and it's also crucial that we review this in full before we go knocking on doors to the banks to make sure you get approved and all that type of stuff. So that's a general checklist of things that we're looking out for to make sure we can get you approved. If there's anything that's not quite right or we need to discuss, obviously you hit us up on our Facebook, email, Instagram, give us a call, text, whatever it is. Myself and the staff will be able to give you a hand, and look forward to working with you and get you some finance. Cheers.